Alrighty then, hello guys, my name is Kim and welcome to this new video. Today, as promised, I'll be talking about the top 5 premium money tanks. So, you've wasted 2 weeks of your life grinding for that non-premium money tank only to find out that you still don't make as much money as you want. For this, or maybe even some other reason, you want to play a premium money tank. But you expect that they won't earn the same amount of money. Some of them might turn every single shot into 5k credits, while some of them are just as good as the non-premium money tanks. And because of this, I'm making this video. By the way, if you're one of those guys, you just look onto VB addicts and then copied the best tanks. No, I'm telling this from my experience and the experience of my classmates. Anyways, enough talking, let's get into the list. On the 5th place is the mighty Löwe.
Nansinganama Bajathi Baba Sithi Aminganama Nansinganama Bajathi Baba Sithi Aminganama Inganama Sion Cobra Inganama.
Never, ever give a German engineer a bottle of vodka, cause this abomination is what happens. Anyways, if you're a heavy tank player, you're absolutely gonna love this tank. Its whole armor works similarly to that of King Tiger, thus basically as long as you can angle yourself and keep your lower plate hidden, you can just laugh as the enemies are ricocheting tens of thousands credits of your thick frontal plate. And if it comes to its turret, it literally looks as if a German tried to create a Russian turret. But that is not the most ridiculous part about that turret. Just look at its gun mantlet. It's freaking humongous. And all of it is over 300 millimeters thick. And if you're one of those dumbasses thinking that you can counter it by shooting it into the cheeks like an E100, no. You probably forgot that the turret is circular. If a Löwe faces you frontally, there's almost nothing that you can penetrate unless you're driving some sort of tank destroyer. Wait, I said almost nothing to penetrate. So you want to know, what can you penetrate frontally on the Löwe's turret? Well, for this thing we need to zoom. A little bit more. Slightly bit more. This part. This little thing is all you can penetrate frontally on the Löwe's turret. Well, normally now I would start talking about Löwe's gun, but it's all around average, only with penetration being slightly bit above average, so there is seriously nothing to talk about. Thus let's skip right onto its speed, which is terrible. You only got 8.9 horsepower to ton ratio, which is the worst amongst all tier 8 heavies. Thanks God that you have pretty decent top speed, thus you can possibly catch up to some of your teammates. But it still won't change that sad moment at the start of the game when you see your entire team storm out of the base whilst you are still left there alone screaming like, "Wait guys, don't leave me!" And now to the most important thing about the Löwe. It's heavily skill dependent. Yeah, I understand that all of the tanks are skill dependent, but the Löwe is like the next level of that. This tank was ranked as the best money tank for everyone that had over 1500 WNA. Well, not that you can't do good if you have like, I don't know, under 50% win rate, but let's rather say that you should look for some other tank if you have under 1000 WNA. Next on our list is the AMX CDC, and trust me, there is no better feeling than just shooting this tank as it has literally zero armor. Thus if you're driving some kind of derpy tank such as ISU-152 or the KV-2, it will feel like Christmas double tapping the number 3 button, putting on your rape face and being like, "Prepare for your examination." Like seriously, lightly armored tanks can sometimes pull off some magical bounces or magical ricochets, but this tank, no. It can because it's flat as a board. It can't even bounce 2 tiers lower shells, which even artilleries are capable of bouncing. Other than that, this tank performs kinda like a tier 8 Cromwell. Fast shooting, high DPM but low alpha damage gun mounted on top of one of the fastest tanks in the game. Thus if you are a Cromwell player, you should know exactly how to play this tank. Simply go out and annoy as many people as it is even possible. But I'll advise you to drive way more carefully than you do in your Cromwell, as on tier 8, tanks quite commonly have 400 meters view range. Combine that with your bad camo values and you're gonna be quite commonly spotted. Now to the next tank on our list, the AMX CDC version 2.0, the greatest living example of wargaming's knowledge of heavy tanks. Of course that I'm talking about the FCM50T. This tank is basically AMX CDC that sold its entire engine for some paper that later on strapped onto itself. And Jesus freaking hell, this thing is strong. Like, don't take me wrong, it's not OP, it's just a jack of all trades that does not suck a big long schlong. Just look at its armor, it's 120mm thick at the front, and if you don't know, it's just as thick as the Löwe's frontal plate. Of course, it would be too OP if it would be released like that, so it is poorly angled. In our words, everything with 150 penetration can go through it. But hey, it can at least block those potato rounds. Other than that, this tank gets exactly the same gun as the AMX CDC. Oh, the beautiful diversity of this game. We all know it. And now to the speed, which this tank has a plenty of. It's no racer and it's nowhere near of being as fast as the AMX CDC, but it's one of the fastest heavy tanks in the game, with horsepower to ton ratio of just under 20. With this, you should be capable of driving side by side with the medium tanks. But do you remember, as I've been talking about this tank being a jack of all trades? Well, it comes with one major downside. If you get a tank with some weak point, you will get some strong point. So a great player can protect its weak points and only use its strong points, turning the tank into an absolute powerhouse. For example, as long as you can angle yourself as a Löwe, you're practically immortal. Of course, they always have some certain counterplay. But FCM50T doesn't have that kind of thing. It's average at everything. This means that if you're some unicorn player, you probably won't be capable of carrying games by yourself. Of course, this does not mean that you can't suck at playing this tank. You can. If you're a bad player, you're gonna do bad no matter tank you're playing. Because if there was a tank in which even bad players would do good, it would be an OP tank. And you know what would happen next? The tank would be overplayed and the wargaming would be forced to either heavily nerf the tank or even entirely remove it. Wargaming? We got a problem. And now to the second best money tank on this list, the newcomer to the game and this list as well. By this time you should know that I'm talking about the Rheinmetall Scorpion. Anyways, if you don't know, the Germans have the most powerful guns on tier 8, and Scorpion is no different from that. In fact, its gun is one of the reasons why I fell in love with this tank. It has 490 alpha damage. And trust me, if this thing will hit you, it will stink. I meant stink. There's G at the end, alright? Anyways, if it has a gun that deals that much damage per shot, shouldn't it have low damage per minute? Well, it should, but it doesn't. As I mentioned before, Germans are having pretty powerful guns at a tier 8, so it's no surprise that Scorpion gets both high alpha and high DPM. But I must point out that it has the lowest DPM out of all German TDs. Well, other than its damage, Scorpion's gun gets pinpoint accuracy, with gun dispersion of only 0.3, which is 0.05 better than that of Rheinmetall Berserk. With accuracy this awesome, you can truly feel how inaccurate your aim is. Now let's move on to its armor. Or, you know what, let's skip it, cause Scorpion has none. Really, there's nothing to talk about. So let's simply skip onto its speed, which is another strength of the Scorpion. Compared to the Erheim Berserk, which moves at the speed of heavies with only 11 horsepower to ton ratio, Scorpion feels more like a medium tank with over 17 horsepower to ton ratio, with actually pretty decent top speed of 60 km per hour. In fact, the only downside of Scorpion compared to the Berserk, if it comes to their speed, is Scorpion's rather mediocre ground resistances. Yet still, I'll advise you to use your speed to get into aggressive camping spots rather than to fight your enemies. This way, you don't need to use your shitty armor and the only thing that you will use are your camo values and your gun. By the way, if the Scorpion would have been in a game for just a little bit longer, I would put it on the first place without any hesitation, as I absolutely love this thing, and not to mention that it is already amongst my best money makers. But seriously, I just feel like I'm overhyped from the fact that there is a new tier 8 premium and the fun that I have with the tank might quickly disappear as it will get older. And now to the last tank on our list, the tank that gets more penetration than your mother did last night. No, don't worry, I won't start with those Call of Duty kid jokes. Of course that I'm talking about the T-34 with its absolutely ridiculous penetration of 248. With penetration this high, you don't even need to load premium shells, as your regular shells can penetrate through basically any tank that you might face, with only very few exceptions. And I actually forgot to mention that this tank gets a tank destroyer's gun. Yes, TD gun mounted on a heavy tank. Thus you won't only get penetration that is ridiculously high, but as well alpha damage of 400, which is highly above the average of tier 8 heavy tanks. But of course it would be too OP if it would be left like that, so you get pretty low DPM of only 1.6k, which is exactly as high as that of Löwe. Other than that, you get only mediocre to bad accuracy. Your gun dispersion is only 0.34 and aiming time is 3.4 seconds. Coincidence? I think not. But overall, firing this gun feels pretty much the same as firing some Russian gun with only one exception. You can actually penetrate something. Now let's move on to its whole armor, which is pretty damn weak. Mainly the frontal plate is very disappointing. You bought a heavy tank that looked like a heavy tank and you thought that it's gonna be played as normal heavy tank, but no. As long as the enemy has over 130mm of penetration, it's going through your frontal plate. This is actually something that majority of the tanks at tier 6 has. So your whole armor is generally one giant weak spot, and the only way how you may bounce something is by side scraping with your pretty thin side armor. On the other hand, your turret armor is complete opposite of that, as it has 260mm of armor frontally everywhere. In other words, you can penetrate your own turret. Overall, frontally there is almost nothing to shoot at. Majority of the people are gonna be fooled by the cupola on the top of the turret, but look at it. It has almost 180mm of armor. That is as well very well angled. Good luck with penetrating that. And the only place where you can possibly penetrate a turret is the top of it. This little slice of armor at the top of it is the only possible way to penetrate this turret frontally. And the side of it, well, it's not the most heavily armored thing around, but if the enemy actually flanks you, they'll still probably shoot the whole armor, as it is way bigger and mainly it is flat. And now to its speed. You are a heavy tank. No matter what you do, you are still gonna be a slow snail. You definitely won't be as fast as the FCM, but don't worry. You will outspeed the Löwe like nothing. Anyways, this is gonna be the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, give it a like. If you did not, please give it a dislike because doesn't matter. This is the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed and bye.